from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talking Catholic. This is Marianela Nunez, and with me today is my colleague, Mike. Which Mike is this?
This is Mike Bress, and Marianela, this is the first time in a little while that you and I have been together. I have been talking with Jen Morrow quite a bit on the recent podcast, but you are just so busy helping our schools that we cannot get you on the calendar. So I'm happy to see you, and I'm happy to actually get you on the calendar to talk some schools today.
I've missed this, so I'm so happy to be back, and it's kind of like it's going to be a wonderful conversation today. I'm so excited for our guests.
It's good to have you back. I'm glad you're out and about, though it is always great when you and I get to collaborate together. So I think it's a good opportunity to bring on who we have this week on the podcast. So Marianela, would you like to introduce our guests?
Sure. So I am so excited for these two guests that we have today because I know them both personally and like professionally. And so we wanted to do something to portray our preschool programs in South Jersey Catholic schools. And for that, we selected two very special places that have very interesting setups and kind of like different from some of our other schools. So I would like to introduce Mrs. Teresa Casanas, who is the director of the dual language pre-K program at St. Anthony's. And welcome to the show for the first time, Mrs. Casanas. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for the invitation. I'm really excited about this. Thank you so much.
Very excited. My kids both went to St. Anthony's, and Mrs. Casanas was their teacher, so I know her pretty well, and I'm very glad to kind of like have the opportunity to have the conversation today. So welcome again. And also, we have with us another special place for South Jersey Catholic schools and a very special guest. This is Mrs. Love. Fern Love is the director of the program at Rosebud Academy in Barrington, New Jersey. And she's also like a feeder for St. Rose of Lima School in Haddon Heights. So welcome. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's so good that you're here, and we want our people and our listeners to know everything that they have to know about pre-K because you both are really experts in the field. And I think that before we get started, we also like to start with your story. What brought you to Catholic education, and what brought you to, the little ones in pre-K? So can you both kind of like share your story, and we'll start with Fern.
Okay, thank you. Well, it was a very circuitous route. I spent about 25 years working as a dance therapist. And
wow.
So in that capacity, I worked with some children on the spectrum and mostly adolescent psych. And that was my job for most of my career. And I was going to take a break, a little sabbatical. I was kind of a little burned out. And I thought, I'm just going to sub. And so I was going to walk to the Board of Education in my town in Collingswood and drop off my resume and just take a year and kind of gather myself together. And I was walking by St. John's in Collingswood, and some of my friends were in the playground with their kids, the lunchtime mommies. And they said, put your resume in here. And I was like, I don't know. And my own faith journey was kind of a little bit like I was. I was a little bit lost, but I was seeking. So I bring my resume into St. John's, and the next day they called me. And they said, would you be interested in teaching our 3-year-old program? Somebody just quit. And I said, well, I don't know. I'm really not a teacher. I'm a therapist. And they were like, I think you could do it. And so I talked to my husband, and he was like, why don't you try it? And so for 2 mornings a week, I basically did dance therapy with the 3-year-olds at St. John's because that's all I really knew. And it was such a wonderful experience that I started saying to my husband, I think I want to go back to school. And so I did. And I went certified alternate route. And I guess right on the eve of my 50th birthday, I passed my praxis and I got my license and I started teaching preschool at St. John's. And then they asked me if I'd be interested in moving to St. Luke's because they wanted to open a preschool there. And I kept saying, I'll do it, but I'm really not a teacher. I just started. So then I went to St. Luke's and I opened the preschool there. And we danced a lot because that was what I knew. And then I was at
Have been fun.
it was a lot of fun and a lot of fun for me, so much learning, because as I was learning, then I was ready to put it right up on its feet the next day. And then I went to a diocesan meeting where it was really a faith building, faith sharing kind of in service. And I met Mr. Steve Hogan, and he said, I would like to open a preschool at St. Rose. I hear you did it at St. Luke's. I was like, I will do. I'm happy to talk to you about it, but I'm really not a teacher. I'm a therapist. And so he hires me to teach kindergarten at St. Rose. So now I'm teaching kindergarten. I'm like, I'm really not a teacher. And so I kept saying that, but the years are now going on, and I guess I'm a teacher now. And so what I started to notice was that the environment was building my own faith at the same time, sort of almost like unbeknownst to me. And all of a sudden now I'm praying with the children, but it's real time praying. It's not some kind of theoretical praying. It's not some kind of scripted praying. It's like real praying authentically. And at the same time, I started attending a living contemplative program at Francis House of Prayer, which moved to Allentown, New Jersey. It's in the Diocese of Trenton. And I started doing centering prayer. And so all of this was happening at the same time. Like my own faith was building as I was watching children build from the ground up. It was really very profound for me personally. And academically, I was noticing that kindergarten was a stressor, and it was getting very driven academically. And I felt like we needed some kind of like stopgap between preschool and kindergarten. And I started talking about the idea of transitional kindergarten. And maybe 5 years down the road, after I was at St. Rose teaching kindergarten for 5 years, they started this program at Rosebud Academy. And I came here to Barrington to teach transitional kindergarten. And that was really my baby, because it's a gap year but once the pandemic hit, the gap became a little wider, and it's a very niche kind of, I think we're the only transitional kindergarten in the diocese, really. And it really is drawing people from all over because it's a very specific kind of needs that we're meeting. It's really like a confidence building kind of program. And so unfortunately, our director became ill. And so I kind of just was holding down the fort until she came back. And they said, are you the director? And I was like, I'm really not a director. I'm more like a teacher. And so I was still teaching and filling this chair until about 2 years ago when I started in this position and stopped teaching. And so the reason Catholic school, I didn't pick Catholic school. Catholic school picked me. And I feel like, as I was kind of, if I think about my life like a dot to dot kind of picture, I can start looking back and seeing where all the dots were. And one of them was definitely walking by that playground that day with my resume in my hand. I had no idea what was coming next. And that was also part of a faith building for me, because it's the not knowing what's next that puts me in a place where I can rely more on God and really have him lead and me follow. And so here I am in this position, and never in a million years did I think this was where I would be. And here I am.
I'm always a fan of that. Yeah, that's an incredible story. And I'm always a fan of coming up with book titles for folks, like for their autobiography. And I think yours is absolutely, I'm not X, but because I feel like that is your entire story, is I'm not a teacher, but, and I think that's just, I mean, it speaks to your passion, obviously. And I think you just put it perfectly about that knowingness to let go and just listen to God and what that story is, and what a great way to get there. But I really do think you've run the gamut of everything. And, yes, thank God for you going across that playground that day, because then it turned your journey into something incredible. So what an incredible story. Teresa, how about you? I don't want you to think you have to outdo this, so feel free to go exactly the way that your story goes, but
Well, I was born in Chile, and I came to the US when I was 4 years old, and I was talking. So I was raised in Philly, and one of the things that I went to Catholic school, and I went to St. Bonaventure Catholic school in Germantown Ave in Philadelphia. And one of the things they did put me in a classroom where, there was none speaking Spanish kids. Well, it was a mixed culture, but the majority of the Spanish kids didn't speak Spanish. So I was there like, oh, okay. So moving forward, not to where I'm at now. 20 years ago, I graduated from, well, not 20 years ago, but a long time ago, I graduated from Eastern University, and I became a director at a school for 20 years in a school in Philadelphia. And by that time, I had moved to Jersey. But before that, I was connected still with my community, with my church. But once my church closed down and everything went down, we moved to another parish. So over the years, I was teaching at another school, and I remember telling my husband, and it was like, it's one of the things that you can feel God there with you. I remember telling him, I really, really would like to work in a Catholic school. And he goes, try it, go for it. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know any Catholic schools around here. Back in Philly, everything is by neighborhood. It's by the neighborhood. Your neighborhood is where your church is at. Your neighbor, that's how. And here was a little bit different. So I had applied, and I applied. I was just, let me check. And I will never forget, I got a call from Dr. Burke, and she says to me, Teresa, do you speak Spanish? And I said, yes. No, she was like, do you understand Spanish? And I said, yes, I do. And she was like, all right. And I got the interview, and then I got hired, and here I am. And then I started out as a preschool teacher. And eventually St. Anthony was supposed to be from pre-K, I believe, to 4th or 5th grade. Don't quote me on that. It was supposed to be a dual language, and the dual language was starting from pre-K, and every year we'll move up. So myself and another teacher, Ms. Lava, and I were the first pre-dual language teacher. And then the next year she moved into kindergarten. I stayed in pre-K because pre-K is my passion. It's always been my passion. And then it's such a unique teaching children their native language, and also teaching them the other side of the language, which they have no clue, but you're there to help them. Even if the student didn't know for example, they didn't know what they were talking about, but they would talk to me in Spanish. I knew they knew what we were talking about as a teacher. So that became my passion. It became everything that I love. And then this year is actually this is my second year as a director, full-time, part-time, but this year is my full-time as a director at St. Anthony for the dual language program. And here I am.
And just to that's just amazing to see, how you started in Catholic education, and you kind of you picked Catholic education. I know Fern mentioned Catholic education. I didn't pick Catholic education. Catholic education picked me. And in your case, you actually, really wanted to teach at a Catholic school and pursue that, and has found passion in teaching little ones, which is not everyone's passion. People, some people that always say, people who work in pre-K are saints, they, deserve, the best. So one of the things that I want to say for our listeners is that St. Anthony of Padua is part of the Catholic Partnership Schools. And so it's a program that is sponsored mainly by the Catholic Partnership Schools. And it's also a feeder for St. Joseph's Cathedral,
Correct.
Camden, which, continues on with the dual language program from kindergarten until fourth grade at the moment. So this is where we are. Wanted to ask you, like, specifically, what is it like to teach pre-K kids? What is it that you guys love the most about, that experience? And I know both of you now are on the director's role, but both of you were able to teach and experience that. So tell us about, what is it like to teach in a Catholic institution to our little, pre-K kids? Fern?
Okay. I would say that one of the things at Rosebud, when I give people tours, I always talk about the Catholic identity that we have here. And it's really woven in to the school day. So when I was in the elementary school setting, we had morning prayer, we prayed before lunch, we had a prayer at the end of the day. It was more structured. But here, everything is done in a way that the children can relate to. So like preschool children, and I think that one of the fun things about teaching preschool is how concrete they are, and that they're mostly in the moment. Now, mostly because conceptually they don't understand yesterday and tomorrow. But that kind of works in their favor because they're enamored of the moment and they live in the moment. And so because they do, we do too. We follow them. And so when we pray, that's what they pray about. Every day, we also have a sister of the Most Blessed Trinity who comes here every day. She has a volunteer. Her name is Sister Joan Lorraine, and she is like the spiritual Mecca of Rosebud. And so she leads the whole school in prayer every day. And it's an interactive bulletin board that all the children sit out. She picks a name out of a bag and they come up and they pray for something. Like our theme for September was helping hands. And so everybody colored a little set of hands. They're on the bulletin board. If you get picked, you come up and you talk about how are your hands going to be helping hands today? And so they are very clear. My helping hands are help my mommy with my little brother. So it's all real life prayer that is helpful to them to think, to understand that God is really with them in these times with their helping hands. When we get to Advent and we start praying about what gifts will you bring to baby Jesus, they're bringing in blankets and baby bottles and Legos, because that's their life experience and God meets them where they are. So that's the thing I love the most about preschool is it's like an improvisational kind of experience. It's not so scripted, and that it is so in the moment.
In the moment.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Mrs. Casanas?
It's for me, I've always been kind of the person that if you teach anything to these kids, they take it in. I mean, I can be talking about anything and they'll just remember like months later. And I'm like, wow, that was amazing. But that was like 3 months ago. But then we'll hit in that conversation, whatever it was. And just, to me, it's just, I think it has to be, you have to be natural, or it just comes to you. And the kids take that. I believe in energy. I believe in positive energy, and I believe in all of that. And if you have that energy and you're like, hey guys, we're going to do this today, or we're going to do that, they're like, all right, we're going to do it. But first, we got to do the schoolwork first. We got to do this. And they are like, okay, we're going to do it. So for me, it's teaching, but in a fun way. They don't know it, but it's so much fun for me anyway. I love it because, you're constantly, I'm one of those type of teacher that is constantly singing to the kids. We're constantly making up a song, even though it doesn't have to do anything what we're doing, but it's all comes together.
Right.
It makes sense.
Absolutely. But I think that creates, my sense is that creates passion for the kids too, right? If you're doing it in a fun way, or if you're bringing the concept that Fern, you mentioned about the concept of gifts for Jesus, right, on Christmas, and conceptualizing it that at that age, or a song, the things that they've grown up with, that creates the opportunity for teaching, right? But also for the kids to connect in a way that's different than when they're going to get older. And some of it is, here are the facts and figures on the board, figure out this math problem, right? And I think that kicks them off into liking school. I think one of my questions was going to be, and we can put it here, and this is, you have the sort of difficulty, I guess, for lack of a better term, that these kids this is the first time they're out of the home, right? And so we've got probably a lot of tears. We've got some, I want mom or I want dad, so how do you kind of sort of combat that? I mean, is it with these types of games, with these types of always keeping them in motion? How do you help them sort of transition into this structure in school while also keeping it fun and open? I mean, Teresa, you kind of already started on that, but is there more, to that about how you keep that part of it?
Yeah. So our morning routine, it's very structured. So parents drop off and we take the kids to the classroom, and the teachers aide will help them put their stuff together. But we have in the morning, I know it, and I don't think I know what makes the kids more comfortable is that we do morning prayers, and we start off with music. It's so therapeutic. It makes you feel like, okay, and they hear the music and they're like, oh, they know. And now you can, you walk around, you can see them. They're like, okay, we're in a relaxing, good place. And that's how we start our day. And then we started with prayer as a whole school. Even though we have only 2 classrooms, we start as a whole together. And we do that. We sing songs in the morning, and then it's all about, we start with, specifically in the morning, it's all Spanish, because in the beginning of the school year, we learn only Spanish. The pre-K only learn Spanish. So everything is in Spanish for them. So they feel like it's the comfort zone. And, it takes about 2 weeks for them to stop the cry. Maybe 1 or 2 still kind of comes in, going, and I'm like, always like grab them and hug them, and we're going to be okay. We're big kids now. We're here to learn, right? And they're like, yeah, we're here to learn. So that's how we do it in the morning.
Yeah. How about you, Fern?
Well, I mean, a lot of the things that we do here is based on a very developmental model. Like we have a young 3s group, an old 3s group, young 4s, old 4s, and TK. And so there's a lot of sections, and it just seems like that's the main part of being 3 is separation. And so we look at individuation and yourself as a person as part of the educational experience. So the 3-year-olds do cry a lot. There's 2 main objectives in that 3-year-old program is to get them in the building and to go to the bathroom. Those are the 2 things we do all morning long. There's either a line for the bathroom or somebody's crying for their mommies. But the routine, like what you said, was really true. The routine is like a Tupperware container. We put them in the structure of the day, and then it's predictable. They know what comes next, and they feel secure. They feel secure, like you were saying, in speaking their native language, and here they're secure in the what comes next of their day. And so that helps a lot with separation. We also have parents drop the children off, and then we walk them in, and that also helps.
I agree. That is like a big help. I mean, just that one, we take them in and we take them back. I think that's the best solution. That was the only solution I felt like the best, because of that. They know once mommy and dad are gone, they're in a good place, in a safe environment, loving place.
Yes. Yeah. We have a teacher who has something called the waving window, because her classroom, we have 7 classrooms. And so her classroom's on the 1st floor and it's on the parking lot side. So the kids go to the window and wave to their parents as they leave. And some of the parents are crying outside of the window. Like it's hard for the parents too, because
some of those, right?
Yeah, this is everybody's first school experience.
Yes.
So not just the kids, but the parents don't know. 3 years ago, they were a couple with no children, and now they're at a school learning all the routines and the expectations and the separation that they're going to experience. So really, that's what I think is the hallmark of early education, is that we service the whole family in a very different way. I think as you get into the upper grades and early childhood education and then middle school, you get more and more separated from your child. But it all starts in preschool. And so if you can have a healthy experience of the routines and procedures of preschool, it's going to prepare you as a parent also for the grades coming forward. So, because every different age has a different task that they're working on.
Right.
Right.
Preschool,
I agree. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and I guess that's good. It sounds like that's good going into, in terms of, Fern, as you just mentioned, this is our goal for the threes, right? And this is our goal for the fours. And then, and I'm interested to kind of, for a second, divert into the transitional kindergarten that you mentioned. I think, I'd love for you to speak a little bit on that and the importance of that, especially for ages as they go through the fours and deciding whether or not they should be in kindergarten.
Right.
I have a child who is an August birthday. I'm an August birthday. I went into kindergarten at just turning 5, and it worked out for me. Some could argue maybe not so well. We'll debate that at a different podcast. But we made a decision for him to do sort of a tradition, a transitional kindergarten sort of model. It wasn't school based necessarily. It was sort of like just doing preschool again. But what do you see are the benefits there? Because for him, it's done a tremendous amount. It wasn't for, your parents say this is for athletics, holding the kid back,
right,
and all of this kind of stuff for their age group. But, for him, it was maturity. It was grasping the social aspect of things, some of the educational point. So for your schools in particular, what does that look like for you? What are the benefits of doing that?
Yeah, well, I mean, when we look at child development, we look at a couple of areas. We look at their their physical development, like you were speaking about sports. We look at their academic development, their cognitive development, but we also look at that social emotional piece. And we've been hearing a lot about social emotional learning right now, but that's what the whole ball of wax is between 3 and 5. It's all social learning. So our transitional kindergarten is really designed for children who have turned 5 by September 30th and could have gone to kindergarten. Their age is appropriate. Their chronological age puts them in kindergarten, but there's one area that isn't quite ready. And so I really think about transitional kindergarten as a confidence building year. So if your fine motor isn't really there, you're having a hard time holding a pencil, maybe more practice will help. And so that's a reason to go to TK. Maybe you know all the answers, and maybe you're even reading, but you can't raise your hand to ask a question. So maybe transitional kindergarten will help you with that. Maybe you don't really have the motor planning to be like successful on the playground. So maybe transitional kindergarten will give you that gift of time year. And that's really what it is. So it's a child-led program. In other words, the curriculum itself is a kindergarten curriculum. We teach, the goal at the end of the year is that you would at least have mastered 30% of the sounds of the letters, that you would be able to write a simple sentence. It's the same goals as kindergarten, but it's more, we don't do standardized testing unless it's required for like an intervention reason. So it's more child-led, and it's more, like I keep saying, improvisational, where if there's an interest, we follow the child in that. So transitional kindergarten builds a lot of confidence so that when you leave, you have had enough time wherever you are. We kind of meet you wherever you are. And it's a small class size, and there's 2 teachers. And but mostly the purpose of, it's not to give your child, it's not for like smart 4-year-olds. It's for 5-year-olds who aren't just quite ready. Because a lot of the times people will have a 4-year-old and they'll say, he's going to be 5 in November and he's really smart and he can read. But that's really not the purpose of TK. It's really a time for you to be able to see yourself in your classroom, that you would be with children with 6 months of your age, and that you could build confidence so that you can take the next step. Because, I say to parents all the time, everybody's going to read, everybody's going to add, everybody's going to Harvard. But if you're not happy and you're not confident, then your experience is going to be very different than somebody who feels good about themselves and looks at themselves as a lifelong learner. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
That's very special. And I think, one of the good things about it is like, you have the opportunity to determine as a school and with the parents if this is something that they would like to do. It's
Right.
not like a mandatory thing that, you need to stay, but, it's a recommendation in the cases where you can see there's something lacking. I think the same way it goes for the pre-K programs in general that we have across the diocese. Like in your case, Teresa, you don't have a transitional kindergarten, but you would kind of like recommend for another year of pre-K 4 if that's the case.
Correct.
Can you speak about that as well?
So in the past, I'd had before we opened our second class. This is our second year with the 2 and 3-year-olds classroom. But so in the past, I would get the 3-year-old, and I had them for 3 years, and I felt with them that I saw the difference from the beginning to the end to the finish to they graduated and moved to kindergarten. I saw a big difference in maturity and the way they hold a pencil, or colored it inside, or whatever the situation is. I saw a difference. Like this school year, we had our biggest moving up graduates. They went to kindergarten, and most of them went to the other partnership, but the majority went to St. Joe's. But this one particular kid towards the end, and it's funny how you said, like, Miss Love, like you said, like parents want the kids to read, they want them to do this and do it. By the 3rd year, honest to God, I had a few kids already that learned how to read and do numbers and stuff like that without any, because I was one-on-one working with them. So when they get that one-on-one, I know they're going to be okay in kindergarten. Now, for the kids that I didn't have for 3 years, I would work a little bit more with them. But I also noticed, even if I told parents, like, I was being honest, I was like, she's not, or he is not ready to go to kindergarten. The parents didn't want to hear it. They were like, no, but I really want them to go to kindergarten. I'm like, okay, you're the parent, you make the decision, but this is my professional opinion. And, but at the end of the day, it's their decision. But overall, my pre-K students they had to learn both languages. They had to learn the Spanish, they had to learn English, and they had to learn everything in both 50-50 in both languages. And, and I also had students in the past that their first language was not Spanish, it was English. So they had to learn Spanish. And last year I had this little girl and I remember I was speaking to her in Spanish and she was speaking to me in English. So she understood my conversation. And I was just, I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. Like she understood. And I repeated myself again and she spoke to me back in English. She knew what it was. She knew what the conversation was. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Marianela.
I just wanted to ask, this question for those listeners who may have, children that are like preschool age and, they're looking for options, in different like pre-K programs. Who is a dual language program for? Like, people may have misconceptions about like what, this is only like for Hispanic speaking, like families and, who's a dual language program for? Can you speak to that, Teresa?
Yeah, dual language is for any children. Any children, we welcome all children and all kinds of faith too. It doesn't matter. I mean, I had mother wants her kid to learn Spanish, and she was like, I would love my child to learn a different language besides one language, is English. So I was like, yeah, we take. And for me, in the past couple of years, it's been amazing because I have seen the progress. I've seen. Even if the littlest thing, even if they don't know the sound, they will still say it. They will say, for example, like an apple, una manzana. Well, what's the letter? And they will say la manzana con la letra M. And then they'll say, in English is with an A. And they know, they associate that. They understand but overall, they understand that there is another new language and they love it. And I can see it through them. And I can see even the parents will come up to me and say, they were talking to me, but I didn't understand it. Can you find out what they were saying to me? And I'm like, sure. And I have done that. I have translated. I couldn't understand, but then I put 2 and 2 together and I would translate it to the parents. So the dual language is not only for native language speakers, Spanish speaking, is for everyone. Anyone is welcome to come to our school.
That's great. That was actually going to be partially my next question. So Marianela, that was a great question because I think that's so unique. I will joke with Marianela from time to time. I know very, very little Spanish, a couple of years of high school and retain some. But whenever her kids come in, I always try to just at least have a starting conversation in Spanish because I know enough to start that. And they're always shocked by the fact that I'm speaking Spanish to them. And Marianela can attest to that. They actually, to your point, speak to me back in English to we don't need to do this. Let's talk in the language and we'll be fine. But do you mentioned the progress, and that was sort of where my question was going to go. You get a chance because your schools are somewhat interconnected in the partnership schools that we're talking about, to see some of the kids go from your preschool into a full dual language program at St. Joe's Pro Cathedral. But do you see the benefits as the kids get older, that ability or that way of having to do it in both languages that helps them later with other topics, yes, or other lessons, because it's a challenge at, 3 or 4, but they're, people say all the time, they're more like sponges, right? So it's a little bit easier than say you or I trying to learn a new language. But, do you see that when they're getting into the middle school age, that helped them as students?
I would think so. Yes, absolutely. Well, I have my first pre-K students are now, I believe, in 5th grade. So it'll be interesting to know how they're doing. Well, they stopped, right, Marianela? What is it? Third, fourth grade. Yeah. So it will be interesting to see how they're doing now, because they don't continue any longer. But it will be interesting. But from my understanding, they when they leave out of here, they move to another school. They know they know how to hold a pencil. They know even how to write partial their name, as long as they can write something, their name, recognize their name, their phone number. Marianela is witness that she probably got a couple of phone calls from her kids.
Yeah.
And their address. Those are the important things I think that the children should learn. And but I do see it. Yes, I do see it a part. I don't spend much time at St. Joe's. I would like to see how they're doing, but
I can tell you though.
Yeah, I was going to say Marianela could tell you that. I mean, I think it's an amazing thing to.
I love the program for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that was partially, Marianela's want to go there is that dual language program through that, grade level. I just think what a golden opportunity at a young age to get that type of skill. Even like you said, where the kids come home when they're talking to their parents, like I could just imagine my kids coming home and speaking to me in Spanish, what they learned. And I'm like, let me check a book real quick, or let me go on Google real fast to see what you said, because I hope it was, but I think that's what an amazing skill that hopefully they continue. That's why I asked that, that they continue, but also when you come up against another challenge, math and history and science, whatever, going back to that idea, to talking with the kids, that you have the ability to do this. You're able to speak 2 different languages, and you have
amazing.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I mean, again, this is coming from a only English marginal Spanish speaker, that it's an amazing skill to have at such a young age, and that, I'm glad we celebrate that at your school and that it's a part of the curriculum.
I also want to bring out that in an early age, and that one of the things I like them to do is do presentations with we just did one. It's called Culture Bag Day, and what the kids did, the students did, they had to bring something of their culture. We didn't talk that well, but we, the teachers and all of us, we were helping. We would bring and just so they can understand that, they can understand some part of, we understand their culture. We want to embrace their culture. For me, that's very important. So, and they did a beautiful job. I don't know, we put it on Class Dojo and Facebook. So it was beautiful the way they did it. I just wanted to bring that up because I was so excited.
No, that's great. No, it's true. I mean, that and to be able to bring that as a part of it too is amazing.
Mike, and we're highlighting here like curriculum and the different things that, both of these amazing pre-K programs have. And I would like to talk to Fern about besides, having a transitional kindergarten program, can you talk a little bit about your curriculum at Rosebud Academy and what is it that you want your students to accomplish by the time they're done with your program?
Okay. Also, I just want to say this, that it would be so interesting to do some kind of longitudinal study on those children.
I know.
Yeah.
Because your brain is so plastic always, but at that age, it'd just be interesting to see what kind of learners they become.
Yeah.
I'm kind of doing that with my own children as I'm seeing their progress.
They're part of the longitudinal study.
Yeah. Marianela will publish a paper at the end.
I'm going to have to write it, I think.
You might have to. That
might be your doctoral work. You'll be Dr. Nunez after that, Marianela. That'll be fantastic.
Dream come true.
Yeah.
Just a beautiful opportunity to let kids bloom where they're planted and really grow. I really do love that. So the structure of our program is more developmental in nature, and the curriculum that we use across the board for literacy is based in Wilson. So we teach foundations. We have a kindergarten foundations for TK, and then we have a preschool version of that. And foundations is a program that really focuses on phonemic awareness. So hearing the sounds is, a very big part of it. And because there's a lot of speech issues in these early years between 3 and 5, so we can catch those things as they come up. And so it's a very heavily literacy-based program. So we use that. We have a religion program that is a 5-day program that's based kind of like a weekly reader. It has a little newsletter with a story and a different quality. It also follows the liturgical year. We use that in the classroom every day. And a lot of and for math and for social studies and science, we use a map. And so essentially what that is we look for the key elements that kids are going to need to master for kindergarten. And we backward chain those standards, and backward chain it so that we could see what the building blocks of those are. And then we write a map. And so the map shows you what to do in September through the school year, and then how to scaffold that into the 4s and then into kindergarten. So that's basically the curriculum that we've done. We just had a meeting last Monday, an in-service day, and the preschools in my little district met, 5 or 6 preschools. And we just really saw the difference in what people's programs were. And we're going to meet in the spring and try to share all of our resources, because we're all trying to get kids to kindergarten. We're all on the same road, but such different resources and ability to get there. But that's kind of typically the curriculum we do. And we also group the kids by their chronological age, but we break it into 6 months. So we have a young 3s, we have a mid 3s and an old 3s. And then we have a young 4s, a mid 4s, and an old 4s, and TK. So the kids and it's a big difference between a 3-year-old who turned 3 in September and one who turned 3 last August. So it's very much paying attention to those developmental milestones too. The curriculum does that as well.
That's amazing.
And that is a great way to lay that out. And you've mentioned this a couple of times, both of you actually. And I think, I wanted to circle back on this question of the religious component. One of the unique things that we have as not only as our South Jersey Catholic Schools as the Diocese of Camden, but that, for your schools in particular, teaching really young kids the concept of Catholicism, right? And some of the things, and I know, Fern, you touched on it a little bit earlier about prayer time, and you both have mentioned, starting the day with prayer, which is important. But what else do you do to sort of help them, with this unique ability to have a religion course, in our curriculum, to talk about our faith and sort of bring the youngest of our, kids to this, to the faith, to the ability to express themselves in that way. So what are a couple of just, brief examples of what you do as part of the religious curriculum?
There are two things that we do here that the former director kind of started and has grown as the school has grown. And one of them is something called the Sparkle Box. And it's based on a story called The Sparkle Box. And the kids decorate a box and they place in the box all of their good deeds, all of the things that they think are going to, something that they would want to open up on Christmas morning, the real gift. And then when we have our Christmas pageant, they bring their sparkle boxes to school and we have them on the altar. And it really gets us in touch with how our actions are meaningful. It's not just the words we use, it's our actions. So that's something we really love to do, to incorporate like a real life experience with our faith, because we are a people of action. And I love the social justice piece of that. And the other thing we do is during Lent, they write their own prayers and they read them over the loudspeaker during Lent. Every day, somebody has a different turn to do that. And it just is another way that we can, if we are the church, then we want to be active learners in the church.
Yeah, absolutely. How about for your school, Teresa?
What we do is we one of the things that I take very pride is that they learn the saint of the month. And growing up for me, we had to learn the saint. So, but it was like different time. I thought doing a saint of the month would be a good idea, so they would know who the saint is. And then like we do the prayers. And one of the other things that I love is during Christmas and Lent is that we teach the kids who's Jesus. We explain to them about, Santa Claus and everything. They kind of, we still keep that magical, but we emphasize more about Jesus, baby Jesus, why is baby Jesus is here and what we offer him. And then during Lent, what did Jesus, I know it's hard. I mean, it's hard to explain that he died for us, right? It's really hard to explain for little guys. So what we do, we don't say the word. We just kind of say, he did die. We do say he did die. We do get but they get upset. But then I'm like, but you know what? He's risen. And when we show them that he's risen, they're just completely, they understand. Then they understand. And then I get couple of phone calls saying, my kid came home crying. I'm like, yes. And I let the parents know ahead of time. And sometimes I do forget, but they understand the concept of it.
Yeah, we do a little Easter retreat right before Easter, and it's like stations, and they go to different stations and they paint a rock, and that's about the rock on the tomb. We plant seeds, and that's the seed from death. The seed looks dead, but we plant it and then it comes to new life. And right. Like little things, and each station has a little different kind of way. The parents come and so it's the children and the parents, and we all do this Easter retreat together. And it's probably one of the more meaningful things we do, because like you said, we also raise butterflies during that time, and we release them for the Easter retreat because they look dead in their chrysalis. And so there are a lot of metaphors in nature that really in the spring are great things to use, because it is hard to talk about death with a 3-year-old because they are so concrete. So
that's definitely talking about our Catholic identity. And one of the things that makes us unique in terms of being Catholic schools is that we do that, and we're able to do that in their with their capacity for like the little ones, which is very important. And we continue to educate even our little ones integrally as a whole person, and that includes our faith as well. I want to ask you, like, we only have a couple of minutes left, which is incredible. This went really fast, Mike.
I told you. Yep.
But,
Always does.
we have hopefully listeners here that may have little kids at home that are preparing or thinking about pre-K. And I just want to get two pieces of advice from each one of you to those parents or to those grandparents who have, grandchildren about what is it that they need to do now if they have a 2-year-old getting ready for pre-K. So start with Teresa.
I'm gonna start. Well, get them ready to come into our school. Well, they have to be potty trained. That's a number one. They have to be potty trained. And that's about it. The rest we take care of it. That's the only thing. They have to be potty trained. The rest we take care of it. And so far it's been going smoothly.
All right. And any piece of advice in terms of like emotionally that parents can do to get them ready as well?
One of the things that I tell parents all the time is like, let them know they're going to school. Give them a heads up. Talk to them. Just because they're little doesn't mean they don't understand. They do understand. Just say you're going to a school, you're going to a big school, you're going to be a big kid. Just let them know they're going to school. They're not being just drop off. Because if you're dropping off, right? They're like, I'll be scared somebody just drop me off anywhere. Just give them a heads up. Just let the kids know that they are going to a school and they're going to go to learn. They're going to learn and they're going to learn fun things. Just give them a heads up.
Great. Thank you. What about you, Fern? Your two pieces here.
I would definitely agree with the potty training. That is number one. And if they're not ready, give them the time they need to get ready. Because the thing that I would say to parents mostly to get them ready for school is give them as much independence in their lives as you can. So let them carry their own bag. Let them remember their own folder. Let them do things in the summer that make them independent, because this is a big step away and you want to give them all the skills they need to feel confident in taking that step. So I think that's really important.
All right.
I think that's great. Those are great. This has been a wonderful conversation. I have to say because we're just about to wrap up, one of the most interesting things about seeing Rosebud Academy specifically that it is housed currently in the school that my 3 of my cousins went through when it was St. Francis de Sales in Barrington. So when I first came over to visit the school in my capacity here at the office, it brought back a lot of memories of picking them up and being a part of their journey. So I'm so glad that the school is still existing in that community and having such a wonderful program there that you have. But I want to say on my side, thank you so much to both of you for coming on. This has been a enlightening and fun conversation about the preschool, which we know is the foundation for education for our kids and for our schools. So it was great hopefully we brought some inspiration to some folks, and we'll have even more kids sign up for preschool for moving forward for us and really continue to grow that. Marianela, any final words as we wrap up tonight?
I just want to thank our 2 leaders here today for their service to Catholic education and everything they've done and they're doing every day to continue to have Catholic education available in New Jersey and especially in South Jersey Catholic schools. Thank you, because we know it is a sacrifice to be part of the Catholic education system. And we know that God has been providing for years with the vocations and the right people to be in the right roles. And, we are really, really thankful every time we think of you and we pray for you so that you can continue to thrive in your roles and find joy in everything you do. So thank you for that service. And I just want to say thank you to our listeners for, keeping up with the conversation here at Talking Catholic. And we hope you enjoy the conversation as well. We will see you at another episode of Talking Catholic moving forward. And remember to listen in all of our platforms. We make it really easy for you to listen. So don't miss an episode. Thank you for all you do.